Hello and welcome to this week's Youth Enquiry Podcast episode. I'm Lucas. Today we are joined by Mark Molloy from Youth Work Dumfries and Galloway. He is the Service Manager for Young People. Welcome to our podcast, Mark. We are very happy to have you here with us. To get us started, here's an icebreaker question for you. If you were on a deserted island, what song would you play that you would pick to listen to?
That's the hardest question, I think, out of everything you're going to ask me. But I think it's definitely got to be the first song that I bought out of a shop that doesn't exist anymore called Woolworths many years ago. And it was called Heaven is a Half Pipe by OPM, which was my favourite song when I was a teenager.
The Glen. That's my favourite song right now. What inspires you to work with young people?
I think for me, I've worked with young people for my whole life since I was 16 and was a part-time youth worker. And to me, it's always about 2 days not being the same, and also the difference that you could make in young people's lives. And even if that's only one young person, I think that difference is something that, you know, is the reason why we turn up to work every single day, because we can see that in different young people at different stages in their lives. We
know you, the Service Manager for Youth Work. What does the role include and involve?
I think my role's something that's quite often deals with things behind the scenes to let the youth workers and the youth development workers focus on what they're doing, which is around the working with young people. So quite often my role can be around dealing with counsellors because we work within obviously the council, and the counsellors are overall responsible for that, dealing with a whole lot of different requirements that come from just working in a council, whether it's about staffing, whether it's about budgets, or whether it's about accessing extra resource that we can make a difference with young people's lives. So I really see my job as connecting the youth work team in with other bits of the council, building relationships across the organisation, and being beside the team when there is difficult times there, but also staying out the road sometimes and letting the staff go on with what they're brilliant at doing.
What is your journey throughout youth work?
I think, as I mentioned a wee bit earlier, I was involved in youth work as a young person when I was age 12 or 13, and was involved in different youth projects, not in Dumfries and Galloway, in a different part of Scotland, and volunteered in a whole range of things, similar to what you're doing tonight, Lucas. But because I'm now really old, at that time podcast wasn't a thing, and I was part of a youth magazine group where it was really trendy and current and modern to produce an actual paper magazine. And if you were to do that now, you'd be seen as really old and out of touch and non-fashion. So it's amazing how that's come on, and that was one of the first things that I was involved in as a young person, and get involved in youth management committees, being a young leader in a whole range of different projects, and then also was part of the Youth Council and a member of the Scottish Youth Parliament when I was younger. And then from that, I was really fortunate to then go and work in the third sector within a really good third sector organisation that gave me loads of opportunities, including the chance to take a group of 36 young people away to Canada for 3 weeks on an international exchange when I was only aged 19 myself. And I got loads of opportunities to through that, and then went to uni and studied community education, and that gave me a good knowledge of what I was doing alongside my youth work. And then I went and got involved in loads of international opportunities, which was an amazing experience for somebody like me who was not from a wealthy family and not from a wealthy area. You know, I lived somewhere probably the equivalent of like Dixhill and Stranraer or Lochside, and that's what I grew up in. And I got loads of opportunities through youth work. And through that, I've always worked in youth work in different roles, and then and just naturally ended up taking on a leadership role and overseeing and leading different teams and services. And eventually that led me to the job that I'm in now. And now, for all the things that was really difficult for me to do as a youth worker, I try and make sure it's my job now to try and get as many of the barriers away as possible to let the staff go on with what they're good at. We're working with young people across the region.
How does social media influence young people?
I think it's massive for young people now. I think you hear about it all the time. Every time you go to any youth group across the region, the last few days I've been really fortunate to be visiting youth groups from Gretna right through to Whithorn. And everywhere you go, young people are on their phones, they're on TikTok, they're making TikToks, they're sending Snapchats, and then interestingly, they now talk about like Facebook is something that their mum and dads do. And I think it's just a massive part of their whole life. And I'm somebody that doesn't really use any social media. And it's important that I stay connected and understand what young people are using. And that's where the staff keep me right, but also the young leaders and people like yourself. And I hear about loads of stuff that yous are doing and creating, and even like the podcast. And I think that because of that, the social media gives brilliant opportunities for young people to connect, whether young people in the region, across Scotland and worldwide. But it's also got huge risks associated with it because of the negative side that comes with social media around people bullying other people, or making fun of them, or making anonymous comments in different posts and stuff, and that can really harm some young people when they're, particularly when they're young and they're maybe a bit more sensitive to some of those things. And again, it's our job to make sure that young people know the benefits of social media, but also what the risks are and how to keep themselves safe online.
For any young people who don't know already, what are the different areas of youth work in Dumfries and Galloway, and what are some of the groups they have?
Within Dumfries and Galloway, we are really, really lucky that we've got a council and councillors of all different political parties who really support youth work. And they've supported it for a number of years because they can see the difference it's making in communities, and also see it as a really visible way that this area has something for our young people to do. And within the council, we've got a thing called our youth work strategy. And what that really is, it's a document that tells everybody from parents and guardians to young people to teachers to the police to community members what youth work in Dumfries and Galloway is about. And that document sounds really boring, but it's really, really important that we've got that. And the number one priority on that is our community-based youth work. So that's our youth groups that run from Stranraer right through to Langham at nights and at weekends that young people can come along to, whether that be group work programmes or drop-ins. And that's what our number one priority is. And we're really proud of that being our number one priority, because that's not necessarily the case across every council in Scotland. And then our second lot of work is our work within schools and what we call wider achievement. So that's making qualifications for young people who maybe would struggle to get them within school or don't want to get them within school. And we deliver work within the schools doing that. And just yesterday I was visiting the Whithorn Rebuild Project, where we've got a group of young people from Douglas Stewart High School who are doing the project through the King's Trust around doing really different rebuilds across Whithorn, and doing really, really good work. It's one of the best projects I've seen in a long time, and I visited that yesterday. So I work within the schools and getting young people their wider achievement awards, such as Duke Edinburgh's Award, Youth Achievement Awards, Dynamic Youth Awards. High Five is really important to get young people the qualifications. And then our third area works what we call youth participation and youth democracy. That's what gets supporting young people to get their voice heard, which is really important now that we've got the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child come into Scots law. And we've got our elected youth council, we've got our Scottish Youth Parliament, and then we've got our networks such as the Youth Matters Steering Group, the Chameleons Group, the Champions Board, etc. So different young people from different groups who maybe don't get their voice heard that much get the chance to get their voice heard. And those things are really important to us. And also our collaboration and partnership with our third sector, because we've got loads of really superb third sector groups within Dumfries and Galloway who are doing really good work. And it's important that we work alongside them and we support them and we support each other, because as resources get less and less, it's important that we all work together and it's not just an us and them scenario. So our priority around supporting the third sector is really important as well.
What has been your favourite project that you've worked on?
It's a difficult question. I'm going to give two answers to that, Lucas, if that's all right. The first one is something that I worked on when I was a youth worker that I'm hugely, hugely proud of. And It's something that I actually mentioned earlier. One of your questions was when I was 19 and a youth worker, full-time youth worker, and I managed to convince my boss at the time that we wanted to take a group of young people to Canada, because I had a really good friend who ran a youth project out in Edmonton in Canada. And they agreed to it, and I don't think they ever thought we would raise the money for it. But over a year, so over a 12-month period, that group of young people raised over £40,000, which at that point was massive. It's still a massive, big number now, but based on the inflation rate and how much things cost now, it's probably equivalent to £60,000 or £70,000. And we raised that over a year. And we took a group of young people, 36 young people, away to Canada for 3 weeks. They stayed with host families. We went to youth projects and loads of stuff. And then it finished off with going to Vancouver and going whale watching, and then going to Niagara Falls before coming home. And the best bit about that was, out of the 36 young people who went on that trip, 31 of them had never been in a plane. They'd never been to Spain, never been anywhere at all in Europe, and we were taking them to Canada. And it always struck me in the last night of that trip, the young people, we were sitting in the room just talking about their experiences. It was in a hotel room in Toronto, and the whole room, they all just burst into tears after the first couple did, because they realised that a group of young people from the area would never ever think they would even maybe get a few days in Spain, had went and done something like that. They'd raised the money, they picked the programme, and they went to Canada, and they'd done absolutely brilliant. And loads of them were homesick during it because they'd never been away before, but and it always stuck in my mind. That's why international youth work is really important, and why as council, why our youth work team delivers as much international youth work as we do with the trips that we've got, because it is really important that young people see how they've got a place in the world, and there's a bigger world out there from the areas they stay in. So that project is something that always sticks in my mind. I'm really, really proud of. And then my second one is something from the job that I'm in now, in terms of the work that we do around the mental health work. And it's not just one part of that, but you can really see the difference in that, whether it be the one-to-one work within schools as part of the school counselling project, whether it be the one-to-ones within Youth Enquiry Service with the team here delivering them, or whether it be our group work programmes that run within the YES, predominantly in Dumfries, but we deliver in other parts of the region. And the reason I'm really proud of that is because you can see the difference in that. If you meet some of the young people in week one of that group, and you go back and 12 or 18 weeks later, you can see the difference. And I've heard now for young people that have went through the programmes, took part in stuff, either one-to-ones or groups, and they talk about how it saved their life in some cases. And that's no exaggeration from some of the places that they were at.
As a service manager, you need to lead on the youth work team. What do you think makes a good leader?
I think to be a good leader, it's about always trying to do your best for the young people that we're trying to serve, the communities that we're trying to work within, and also our staff and volunteers. And if we all keep what I describe as our North Star, which is our young people, if we always keep them at the centre of every decision we're making, then we won't go far wrong. And also being upfront that not everybody's going to agree with every decision I make or anything, but if I do it for the right reasons, because it's the right thing for the young people, or because we need to comply with the rules of who's employing us, which is the council, then we won't go far wrong. And I think part of that leadership role is actually taking the time to explain to people why we're making the decision. So they might not agree with it, but at least we've been upfront and honest and open with them. And also a bit staying true to your values around making sure you're treating people with respect, making sure you're giving people the best opportunities that's there. And I mean that for both staff and young people, and also doing everything with the real honesty and integrity, and doing your best at all times, especially when things get difficult, because it's not always easy when you manage services, and it's not always easy when you manage staff. And I certainly don't get it always right. I know I don't get it right all the time. But if I can get it right more times than I get it wrong, then I think I'll be doing an all right job. And I think that within the youth work team, we've got loads of leaders in different ways. We've got our young volunteers that provide a leadership role to other young people and act as somebody that they can look up to and as a role model. We've got our youth workers who become a role model in leadership role where young leaders and young volunteers. And then we've got our development workers who provide a leadership role in a really challenging set of circumstances around the amount of demand that's placed in them to deliver things, quite often things behind the scenes, as well as the frontline delivery, and then with the role with within the management team of the service, which is one of the smallest in the council. We'll always try and do what's best for the young people and try and get more things right than we get wrong.
What made you come up with the idea of Youth Beats, and how did it start?
I think Youth Beats started in 2009, so 15 years ago now. And it started out when I first came to work in Dumfries and Galloway, and I felt that we needed something for young people in the region that they could go to during the summer at the end of our summer programme. So I'd worked with Paul Chisholm within the team, and also a group of young people who were accessing the Oasis Youth Centre at the time to talk about what we could do at the end of the summer. And the notion of Youth Beats come up, and a lot of people don't know this, but actually at the start it wasn't just called Youth Beats as well. A lot of people don't have the memory of that, and you're definitely far too young, Lucas, to remember. But the first 2 years of it was actually called Youth Beats in the Park, because there was a big festival that happened in Scotland called Tea in the Park that's now not ran for about 10 years. So we ripped the name off for that. But it's not. It wasn't quite tripping off your tongue as quick as Youth Beats does now. So it started out as Youth Beats in the Park. We ran it at Dock Park in Dumfries. It was just organised through the Oasis Centre, and we only expected to get about 300 or 400 people at it, and it really was a few stalls, a very small stage, and I think one food van type thing, and with our own barbecue ran by the Oasis Centre. And we ended up, it was a lovely day, we ended up with about 3,500 people at it. And since then, it's grew and grew and grew into what we have now, which is 40,000 people over the 2 days, including a 7-day fringe festival, including the Tune Experience that was also called different things in the past. It was called World of Wonka at one point, and it's very it was called Disney at one point as well, which was a take in Disney thing. So it was called different things over the years, and it's always evolved based on the young people. It's been involved in it through our youth events groups, whether through the Tune, and people underestimate, I think, sometimes how much it's took to grow that in 15 years to have Dumfries and Galloway is a rural area sitting with the largest free youth festival in the UK. I think it's sometimes taken for granted, and sometimes people don't really realise the magnitude of it. But when you go and speak to people who do the same job as me in other councils, they're absolutely amazed at what we've been able to deliver in Dumfries and Galloway, and being able to deliver that from that wee small event in the first year up. Again's down to the support from councillors who have committed the funding to this each year, but also to other funders and other sponsors, but really down to our youth workers and our young volunteers that deliver it each year. And I'm really excited that we've got 6 weeks away, or maybe 5 weeks' time this podcast goes out to the next festival. And we're really excited as well that I know this year that yourself and the other young volunteers involved in the podcast are getting the opportunity to do some recording at this year's festival with some of the acts on the main stage and some of the other key people involved in it. So I'm really looking forward to listening to the special episodes that you are going to produce round about Youth Beats.
As a final question, what is your favourite memory so far during your time in youth work?
I think in Dumfries and Galloway, I think my favourite memory's got to be, again, the individual stories you hear from young people. I think it would be dead easy to pick a really high profile, exciting project like Youth Beats, for example. But to me, that's actually secondary to knowing that we're making a difference in some cases to the young people who access the services. And the proudest part is definitely when you hear young people as they're a bit older, as they're maybe 19, 20, 21, talk about the difference that their youth worker and their youth project made to them when they were younger, when they were, maybe 12, 13, going through a difficult time, and they came and accessed a project, maybe, in the Stewartry or Annandale and Eskdale or Dumfries, and the difference that those youth workers have made. And I think sometimes youth workers can be underestimated for the positive impact they can have in young people's lives. And again, it's not just a saying that gets used because it nationally, but genuinely in some cases, youth work really does change some young people's lives for the better. And that's something that everybody should remember that it does, because it isn't easy all the time. It is hard to do a youth worker's job, particularly on a cold, wet winter's night, when you've got young people coming in and the challenges that sometimes come with that. But the proudest thing and my strongest memory is definitely those young people that tell us the positive difference this has made to their lives.
Thank you for coming to our podcast, Mark. Please remember to follow us on social media channels. See you next time. Bye.
Follow us to keep up with more podcasts.